yeah, great success so far. All right, a little bit of work after work. I think today I'm going to try and get this brake pedal assembly that I picked up from the junkyard this last weekend. It is out of a 05 Silverado. It's a pretty simple mount, flat mounts to the firewall, and had a support on the top. This came out of a 3/4 ton Hydro Boost, so hopefully going to use the factory Hydro Boost for this. By the looks of it, I kind of mocked it up there a little bit because my steering shaft sits pretty low on the floorboard. This is going to have to sit way higher up. So instead of my steering shaft going through here, it's going to be down here. So what I actually think I'm going to do is cut this bracket, probably straight line down from here, and then straight line over. So this doesn't have to go through, or so the steering shaft doesn't have to go through it. That's my thought anyway. Then I'll build some sort of support off the firewall for the top mount and probably tie in the dash at the same time. There is a bracket underneath this steering column already. It's pretty flimsy. It was attached to the front, but it does give this mount some support. So I think what I'm going to do is once I get the brake pedal assembly bolt to the firewall, I'll build something off the firewall that'll support all of this in one shot. So those are the ideas I got in my head. So we're just going to cut this bracket up, get rid of some of these random mounts I don't need, because this had the cruise control on it, which is why this weird thing is there. So gonna get rid of some unwanted pieces off this brake pedal assembly and hopefully get this thing kind of bolted up where it needs to go. We'll see how that goes. Got the brake pedal modified. You can see how much further up that brake bracket needed to be compared to where the steering column goes through. But I still like the correlation between the two. It seems this, obviously the brake pedal is like way up off the ground, but in the middle of its travel it sits about right there, which I sat down in it and it sits comfortably, and then it's got plenty of room. I'm not too worried about where the pedal placement is. I can manipulate this since it's steel, so I can bend that or however I need to do, and probably shave this down since I'll have a clutch and a gas pedal. But I do like the positioning of this bracket on the firewall, mainly because I can kind of see where my fender mounts, and I know kind of how that sits. So I'll have room for my clutch here, and then the booster will be on the other side. The booster should come out pretty much centered in this opening, which is kind of what I was shooting for. That way it's got plenty of room. I'm gonna mark the holes a little bit better and probably drill 2 of the mounting holes. That way I can get this floor bolted in and see how comfortable it is. But like I said, I'm not too worried about it. I can modify the brake pedal as I need it. I think it's gonna fit pretty good. Fingers crossed this idea keeps going. Alright, today is Sunday. Came out the shop just to try to get a few things done. Nothing crazy. I picked up some parts this weekend. Some junkyard parts. Got a throttle pedal out of a square body, Hydro Boost setup, and a steering shaft. I got the Hydro Boost so I could finish getting my brake pedal drilled out and stuff. I'm going to run a factory Hydro Boost master cylinder setup on this brake pedal. So I wanted to get the booster set up so I could actually get everything bolted up to the firewall and make sure everything is going to be happy in the location that it sits. While I was there, I also got an XJ steering shaft, which should bolt to my gearbox, but I will have to get some sort of joint to adapt to this. I think it's a 1-inch D shaft coming out of the I Did It column. So I wanted to get the column mocked up and do some measuring and make sure I can get the correct U-joint that goes from the column to the steering shaft. And then also make sure it's long enough. So I got the Hydro Boost set up to where I can finish the brake pedal. I've got the steering column. That way I can start figuring out the parts I need for that. And I got the throttle pedal. I liked the throttle pedal in my red Suburban, so I went and got me a square body throttle pedal. It should all work, at least today. I don't have a hole saw to get the Hydro Boost set up in, so I'm kind of bummed about that. But I can at least get the steering shaft figured out and possibly get the floorboard put in it. That way I can get the gas pedal sitting where it needs to sit and get the hole drilled. I'm trying to get the firewall all set up because I've got some of this Mars rover lunar lander heat resistant, or whatever you want to call that stuff. I don't know. A heat shield, stick on heat shield stuff. I was gonna do license plates, but I tried. I got frustrated, and I admit defeat on that one. It would be kind of difficult. I'd have to cut out all the holes for the booster and everything to go through the license plate, so I just opted to get something simple. Just stick on heat shielding. Also going to have sound deadener on the inside to act as a heat barrier too and insulation. So it should be all sealed up pretty good by the time I'm done with it. But today we're just trying to get some parts figured out, figure out what I need to order next to get it all to work together. So we'll see what we can get done on this nice Sunday. We're going to start with the steering shaft because I've been wanting to get the steering wheel to turn the wheels since I put the cab on the chassis. So this is the first thing I want to figure out. I want to make sure that this is actually going to work with my gearbox here. So we've got flat side, we've got flat side. So this actually needs to go this way. This can work. Oh yeah, great success so far. Man, this thing's greasy. Let's grab a persuader. Just what the doctor ordered, Roy. Craftsman 35 spline ratchet for the win. All right, good news is column fits the gearbox. And next good news is it looks like it's perfect length. So now what I need to do is figure out how this thing comes off here. And considering I just got it bolted on, it looks like I have to take it off. That's a bummer, but we'll get it figured out. Actually, you know what we're gonna do? There's plenty of length in this column. Why don't I just cut it? This is a super long steering shaft, which I don't want it to be that far out. It's only going to be probably about there. Since I'm going to have to cut this down anyway, I might as well just cut it off now. So I'll cut right below this U-joint. This U-joint is splined on the top. Obviously this is this is like a 1-inch D shaft. So I'm going to have to get a different U-joint anyway and somehow adapt it. For right now, we're just going to give this a little cut, a little trim to get it off there. It definitely has like a rubber bushing in it, but it ain't going to matter to me. So we'll flatten that up and we'll do some measuring. All right, since I found out that the steering column fits on the gearbox, the only thing I have left to do is I've cut the upper U-joint off of the other side of the steering shaft. I need to measure this end and find a U-joint that fits a 1-inch D shaft on the column and goes to whatever this is. It kind of almost looks like 1-inch round. If I can get something close, if I have to modify it and just weld it on, I will. This is a steel shaft, so I know I can weld that. And then the steering wheel will steer the wheels. It's exciting stuff. So on to the next one, which is probably going to be putting the floor in so I can get this gas pedal located, drill the holes, and then drill a hole for the throttle pedal to go out. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, got the floorboard all in. I like how it bolts in, but it takes a little bit of manipulating to get it to bolt back in, but it is nice. There's a hole that I'm going to have to take care of, but that'll be a different deal. I'll make a patch panel for that, and a patch panel for this. This transmission shift tower sat a little bit further forward than the factory one from 1950, which, go figure. The one thing I am noticing is pedals. I'm going to have to manipulate them a bit, but I'm seeing an issue with where my throttle pedal sits and my steering column sits. I might have to make a bracket that comes up off. I'm going to shine a light down here. I'm going to have to build a bracket that comes off this recessed area that will basically make a shelf for the throttle pedal to sit on. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting places. It's feeling like a truck again. I think now, because I don't have a hole saw to mount the brake booster, I think I'm going to do something fun. I have this Switch Pros switch bezel that has a air gauge on it, which I am going to have a big air tank on this thing. I'm thinking about mounting this right underneath the dash here, just below the controls, and I'll have spots to put accessories on instead of mounting any holes in the dash. And then this actually comes with a relay box that mounts under the hood. So I think I'm going to mount that up now, just so I have the placement for it. And then that way I can start to bend my shifter. It'd be pretty cool to get my shifter figured out now that the floor's in, the column's in. Once that's in there, I just want to make sure I'm not going to be slamming my knuckles into anything. But yeah, I think this will be pretty sweet. Need to get rid of some of these. The wiper will probably stay. I'm going to try to figure out if anybody makes a aftermarket system for the wiper on this deal, because it is electric. It is an electric actuated wiper system, but it is 6-volt positive ground. Now that I got my helper up in here. There, my push button start is still here, and the key switch, I will be keeping those because I do have the keys for this thing. It is going to be cool to reuse the factory key and then the push button to start it. So it's getting there. I think next thing is mount the switch so then I can figure out the shifter. Alright, I got the switch mounted. I had to move it over a little bit because I do have this handle here that activates the hood scoop. So I want to keep that functional just so I have some airflow in here. I got rid of some of the, like the light switch was in the way. That was super bulky. So that got out of the way. Throttle and choke. So those are all gone. The two, I'll probably move the push button start over to where it's key start instead of being over there, and then I can run my parking brake. Probably do a hydraulic parking brake on that left side of the steering wheel where there's a hole where the PTO engagement was. I'm gonna rework the switches a little bit, but I got this main switch on so I can have all my auxiliary lighting and compressors and whatnot on switches, and then have my tank plumbed in. Next is shifter. Kind of excited to do this, but I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I've got a grinder and a vise, and I'm gonna bend me a shifter. That was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. Shifter is bent. I literally just bent it in an S. This is a piece of aluminum stock. I do have a piece of solid steel stock that I might actually use because it turned out to be shorter than I anticipated, but I think this is perfect. This will have to get cut down a little bit more. I've got a shifter handle that a friend of mine's dad made for me. I am going to probably cut this flush at the bottom, sink a threaded insert in it, and then what I'll do is I'll drill a hole in the center of the shaft, and then I'll just thread the shifter on. But I think that's pretty good. I might move it over a little bit But I kind of want to, I guess I could see. Yeah, I might bend the bottom, might bend it a little bit more extreme. I mean, that's pretty good though. Just leave it loose so it rotates. I'm just kidding. I think it's pretty good. I'm not going to make it permanent until I get my throttle pedal in, but I think I am centered on the steering wheel as we sit right here, and it seems to be a pretty good angle. So, and then reverse is way over there. I like it. Shifters shifting and stuff. I just got to finish the handle, and I'll probably make my steel one and then just see which one I like better. But I think that's all I'm gonna get done for today, just because I don't have really much of, I don't have a hole saw to mount the brake pedal, and I need the brake pedal mounted in order to figure out the gas pedal. So that's it for today. We'll see you later.